Leslie, we're on.
Oh.
You here?
Mm-hmm.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm like a fly on the wall.
I was going to eat a brownie, but I won't.
I'm like a Great Gatsby. Why are you putting your brownie on top of my...
I don't know. I just needed a
Habital.
thing to put it on.
Man, you are...
I didn't want to put it straight on the table.
You're robust. Here, put it on a leaf.
No, thank you. I'm fine. It's
right.
okay.
How was your Thanksgiving?
It was nice.
How was the chat's Thanksgiving?
Can I turn this a little bit so I can see it better?
You can do whatever you want, man.
Okay. Nice. Well...
Yeah, I was reading this Kiwi Farms thread about me.
Oh, really? Are they talking about you?
A year ago. They haven't talked about me since then. But every once in a while I go on Kiwi Farms and I look up my name because usually my name is in reference to something else they're studying because I have a lot of primary source material on a variety of lolcows. We've discussed lolcows, haven't we?
A little bit. And Kiwi Farms is a website. Or a forum?
Well...
Or a social media site? What is it exactly?
Well, websites are one word for it, and forum is another word for it.
Okay.
But I don't think it's a social media. I mean, but it's a forum, so social.
Okay.
But it's not social media.
Is it
It's
like
forum.
a Discord or something like
No,
that?
no, Discord is something else. Discord's its own app. But sometimes there's a web app, so it is a web. I don't care.
Okay.
Anyway, so I was looking through all the comments on me, and people were like, "Oh, he's still around." And this one guy was like, "He hasn't got no charisma. I'm tired of listening to him. I checked out. I didn't know he's still around. He's getting fatter and fatter."
Fatter?
Yeah.
You're
I mean,
very
it's
fat.
true. Well, I
You're
mean,
pretty
I've been
thin.
a little bit of a fat.
And I don't know about that. You're...
So I've been thinking I should like get a little bit more personality, more charisma.
Oh, really?
And I think that's what kids mean when they say Riz. I think charisma is Riz.
Oh, my gosh. So
I think that's
so
what
you're
Riz is.
looking to purchase some more?
Yeah, I was gonna go on TRT or whatever that. Heroin, methadone,
geez.
methane. What's the Ritalin stuff?
I don't know.
Whatever RFK uses. He uses testosterone, I think. He's got a lot of Riz, but he's got that voice, and I don't want to talk like that.
I don't think
It's really
that's why he has that
hard.
voice.
No?
No.
Okay.
So you're going to go get Riz?
I think I need to get
You
some
get
Riz.
Riz juice?
Because I'm only 6,000 away from 100,000. I've been at like 90 or 80,000 for like 4 years. And it's just like, come on, get over it. And then I can send off for the little YouTube plaque. You know, you get
And
this little
that's like-
silver YouTube plaque.
That's when you know you've made it?
Well, when you get 100,000, then you get a little check by your name and a plaque.
Is that important?
I don't know. It was a milestone. Not that it necessarily... The only thing that really matters for anybody inside baseball on YouTube is like the view counts on any given video. You know, because you can get up to like 100,000 subscribers. Who knows what those subscribers actually means, but it's about engagement.
Well, what does it mean to you?
ABG. It's all about engagement. ABE?
You want to increase your count.
No, somebody said that I have low charisma, and it sounds like I have low T. Like that's what I'm like. So that's why we're getting.
But maybe that guy. Maybe that's.
That's why I'm going to drink
not
some
an
of this
opinion that you need to care about.
and see what happens. Rich and robust morning vitality. We might have to take a break halfway through the stream for about 15 minutes.
For what? Tea? Oh. Jeez,
See,
Benjamin.
if I have too much charisma, then you get on my case, man.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right, so you have to think of something while I get my tea. Oh, I'll wait.
I'll get your tea for you in a second.
All right.
I had a couple of things. I sent you something yesterday. What did I send you?
I don't know.
Well, do you want to go see Wicked?
Do you want to pretend like we're the two people at Wicked?
Well, yeah, hold on to each other's hands
You're so
with our
beautiful.
sharp nails.
You're so beautiful. Gonna hug box you. I'm queer.
Okay.
People like me.
That interview circuit is super obnoxious.
We should have, instead of the Taste the Biscuit, I should have played the Wicked.
Did you play Taste the Biscuit?
Yeah, that was our opening
Did you?
song. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, it was silent
like
on our
that.
side, yeah.
You like that. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about it, how much I felt repulsed by the obvious
tell 'em what we're
self-aggrandizement.
talking about. Tell 'em what we're talking
the
about.
musical Wicked.
Okay, yeah, but
sure
tell them
people-
what you're talking about. What are you
There's like a tour, a press tour.
Press junket.
And so it's the two stars who are in this series of interviews, and it's just really, it looks like what bad therapy would be. Oh, I got you a cup sitting there if you want it. No, it's right behind you. It says life is hard. Will you film my tea up too, please? Anyway, they
The two main
are,
actresses.
yeah, they're so, they're just so overdoing the emotion and I don't know. It's just, it's pretty
Hug boxing.
cloying. Hug boxing, what's that?
It's like they just love on you. They trap you in like affirmation and stuff. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I said I don't think I want to see that after all because the press junket is kind of making me sick. But maybe it would be good to watch. I don't know. Could be interesting. What are people thinking?
Why do you want to see that movie?
My mom liked the musical. I never saw it. Haven't been to it. It might be interesting. Helena says she read Wicked, the book. How was it? Did you like it?
It was one of the first of this whole genre that popped up in the turn of the millennium, where people were subverting fairy tales, and now it's just become part of our culture, and that's why Disney puts out so much crap, because they're stuck in this subversion of expectations. You know, like basically Wicked, from what I understand, is like
It's from the witch's point of view.
yeah, it's actually
right?
well, they're all witches, but you know, it's the Wicked
The
Witch.
Wicked
point
Witch.
of view. Wicked Witch of the West or East or whatever. I don't know. Is she a celestial or Occident? But yeah, you just you know the Maleficent
Orient or
and
Occident?
Maleficent and
Oh, yeah.
Cruella. You know, it's just like, okay, all these
It's just a perspective.
all the villains, all evil is just misunderstood good, right? Everybody's just misunderstood.
It's interesting how that does tend to be a lot of the case within relationships. You know, the conflicts we have often really do have two perspectives and two sides that are, if not equally valid, both valid. So that's interesting. But yeah, I'm not totally opposed to seeing it.
Okay.
Yeah, you made me see Barbie.
Well, yeah, but I made you see Barbie so I could see Oppenheimer. And Barbie turned out to be the better movie.
I didn't want to see either one of them.
I know.
Why did you make me see Barbie so you could see Oppenheimer?
I was going to go see it, and
Barbie?
You get pouty if I don't bring you to my adventures. I can't, like, go... This is not the kind of relationship where I can just...
Go see Barbie by yourself.
Yeah, go Don Draper it in the middle of the
Oh,
day and
gee.
go see a movie, you know? Mm-hmm. I have to bring you because you want to be involved in things. Yeah. So, I don't know. I guess we can see that and give our movie a review.
I suppose so.
That would be cool.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about euthanasia in the news right now because Britain just had this big vote. The UK voted on whether or not to legalize, I guess, medical killing.
Assisted suicide.
It's not really assisted suicide, though. I mean, assisted suicide is one thing, but euthanasia is another thing. It's mercy killing, right?
Oh, okay.
Euthanasia is different than assisted suicide.
Well, what's the difference between that and a DNR order?
DNR is if you are really struggling, we won't resuscitate you. If you're dying, we will allow you to die.
Yeah.
And
Is that okay with you?
euthanasia is...
We haven't talked about that.
Euthanasia is, I'm going to actively kill you.
Okay. It's like you still have viable life ahead of you.
You're not dying, but we're
Yeah.
going to kill you because
Okay.
we've decided that your life, or you've decided that your life is not worth living.
Well, but you get to decide that. You get to
No.
voluntarily...
No, it's something like 40% of euthanasia is involuntary. It's not assisted suicide. That's a different thing.
Oh, okay.
Euthanasia is not assisted suicide. It is killing, medical killing. So like MAID in Canada, Medical Assistance in Dying, their MAID program actively solicits people into their death program.
Mm-hmm.
They actually go to hospital beds and check in with people and offer services. And they've offered services to people who are disabled or even just really poor. So it's different than assisted suicide. It's actively soliciting. What are you looking at?
Continue.
Well, what's your question?
I'm not. It's not something I could talk about. I'm just going to do it.
Oh.
You can keep talking
Well,
if you want.
okay.
No. Or I can keep talking.
Yeah.
You can't have dead air.
Oh, dead air.
No dead air. You have to keep
You
talking.
can't euthanize the air,
No, you cannot euthanize the air.
even if it's a mercy killing of the air.
You're distracted by this. Don't look at
Yeah,
this.
I am.
Look at me. Tell me what you want. What do you want?
Well, I find it really concerning.
Okay,
I'm
why
curious
is it?
what your thoughts are.
I think that somebody. Well, okay. So one aspect of it is, do we have the choice to die? You know, if we have the technology, who's going to stop us from using this technology, right? So that raises the ultimate litmus test for liberalism is a consent-based morality. If you don't consent to life, who is anybody to tell you to keep on living? Especially if you...
It's one thing to decriminalize suicide, and it's quite another thing to change your criminal code so that doctors are permitted to commit homicide, which is what's happened in Canada. That's what they've done, is they've altered their homicide code to make it legal for doctors to kill people, to administer deadly poison to patients.
Yeah, that's what I was looking up.
Look up the coffee case.
Hold on. I'm looking up something else. You can look up the coffee case. And then,
Well, the coffee case was in,
I have to do this.
where was it, the Netherlands? And it's this case where this woman was forcibly killed by her family. I think that they poisoned her coffee. Was that what it was? Was that why it's called the coffee case? She was, she had said some years before, if I ever am in this condition, I don't want to live.
Okay.
And sometime later, she found herself in this particular condition with this particular diagnosis. And her family and the doctor decided, okay, she now meets the criteria, so we're going to kill her. She said, no, wait, I've changed my mind. And they ruled her incompetent and went ahead and killed her anyway.
Oh, okay.
And it's a pretty large number of cases of euthanasia that end up not being made with the voluntary consent of the person killed. They are made between doctors and family members or some other way. But this is we're talking about a person who's not dying. Maybe they have a terminal diagnosis, but this is not necessarily the case. What are you?
I'm listening.
What you looking for?
Oh no, don't worry about it. I can't do it and talk to you about it at the same time, but we can talk about the
I
aspect.
don't want to talk about it by
No,
myself.
keep it. No, that's fine. Yeah. So, but if you, so when we're done talking about what I'm doing, talk about what we're talking about. Sorry, I feel like I'm being bitchy on camera to my wife. You need to slap me. I'm being bitchy. Okay, yeah, you should probably like slap me, because trying to do something.
You're looking for a specific thing.
Yes, I'm looking for a specific
I'm trying to
thing.
help you out.
No, you can't help
I can't
me.
have this conversation by myself.
Well, no, because we'll talk about the conversation, but we can't talk about the conversation and what I'm doing while we're talking
Okay.
about the conversation. And we don't need to. We can just talk about the conversation. Anyway, so there's different aspects to it. One thing that's kind of worrisome is that it's very likely that it'll just be a calculation based on money. And that's what you see coming out of Canada, is that people in the medical industry are telling like the poor people or the veterans or the chronically ill, like, well, have you considered this? You know, like,
They're
so it's
introducing
opening up
it, yeah.
the sluice ways for that. So it's not exactly beyond the pale that there are other calculations beyond just consent. But do you want the option for yourself to be unalived if life is not worth living for you?
We always have that option. People commit suicide all the time.
Yeah, but it's not as well. I'm just trying to steal. I'm trying to steal. It's not as.
I'm just saying it's we have a warped institutional view of this. So I was arrested for suicidal ideation once. I told you this story. I've told this story once on my YouTube channel, but I'll tell it. In 2014, I found out that my ex-husband was cheating on me, and he wasn't just cheating on me a little bit. He was super cheating on me. I found a whole trove of information with prostitutes and tons of just tons of stuff. And I found this all out one morning, and I had a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old, and I was absolutely devastated. And I confronted him with this, and then he hit me in the face in front of my kids. And it was like my whole world had fallen apart all in one afternoon, one late morning at this point. And I was so devastated that I kind of went through the rest of the day in a haze. He went to work. I called the cops. I filed a police report for the domestic violence.
Okay.
And then that night, I was just in this like complete fog of shock and depression. And I was texting with him, and I think I said the phrase, "I'd rather die than be a single mother again." So I was really just completely devastated. And he called the police at that point. I called 911 or something. And I got a phone call from a woman who was, I guess, affiliated with King County Police, was maybe a suicide hotline person. I don't know who she was. She was really officious and kind of crisp with me. And I didn't want this call. I didn't want to speak with this person. It wasn't an empathetic call from somebody who was caring and trying to reach out and check on me. It was somebody who was kind of busybodying me.
Okay. Like the arm of the state or the bureaucracy was kind of...
It was like the secretary at the high school or the lady at the front desk of the medical office. It was just somebody who was not really interested in talking with me and demanding that I answer questions. And here I am sitting in my car crying, thinking, how the hell am I going to move on and what am I going to do with my life? And she was kind of interrogating me, and I wanted to get off the phone. And I told her I didn't want to talk to her. And she was asking me if I was suicidal. And I said, well, I'd rather die than be a single mother again. So I said the same phrase again. And then I hung up. I got off the phone with her. And a little bit later, 2 cops showed up at my house. And they took this opportunity to really push me around. They mocked me. They belittled me. They tried to go into my house. I told them they weren't allowed in my house. I said, this is just a really bad day. I'm really struggling. I'm not going to do anything. I have little kids. My little kids are in the house. My 2 older kids were with them. But they said, you should have thought about that before you said what you said. And they handcuffed me. They told me that I was going to spend 72 hours in detention being evaluated at
That's 3 whole days.
At Harborview Hospital, that I would be evaluated for 72 hours for the suicide threat, that it was mandatory because I said I did not threaten to kill myself. I just told the woman how bleak I'm feeling right now. So they put me handcuffed in the back of an ambulance and took me to the hospital. I was then evaluated by a couple of psychologists who said basically what I said, you've had a really terrible day. I'm so sorry. We're going to let you go. So they let me go really quickly once the psychologists came in and talked with me.
Wow.
But these cops really were quite sadistic. They enjoyed handcuffing me, pressing me up against the car, and basically making fun of me. I said to the one cop, can't you understand that I'm just feeling that this is just really horrible? I recounted the day's events. And he said, I said, I just found out my husband's cheating on me and that he's an abuser. He hit me in the face. Can't you understand how I'd be feeling? He said, no, I don't have a husband. And that was how he talked to me. So it was like the fact that I tripped over this wire, I tripped over the suicide wire where I said the wrong words to the wrong person. It unleashed state power over my body, over my life, over everything. And then they also, this is the clincher, my kids, none of them were over 18. So they said they can't be home alone. So we're going to call CPS to come and get your kids unless you call they had me call my ex-husband to come and be with them. The guy who had an active domestic violence charge or report against him was allowed to come to my house and be with my kids, or else they were going to call CPS and have CPS get involved in my life as well. Because I said I'd rather die than be a single mother. Because I said something that was too close to a suicide threat for the people in the government. And so we're so sensitive about citizens threatening, feeling, and suicidal ideation is super common for people. It's so common, and it doesn't mean that you really want to kill yourself. A lot of times it represents a feeling of desire for escape, a feeling of lack of agency, a sense of hopelessness. It's a very transient experience in a lot of people's lives that comes and goes. It's extremely, it's not well correlated to actual attempts or actual action towards it. It's a feeling that many people experience at certain points in their lives. And yet people are terrified to tell anybody who's a mandatory reporter, a teacher, a counselor, etc., because this could unleash this sort of thing that happened to me on them. And how is that okay that we're so tripwire sensitive about suicide on that end? And now we're going to say, you know what, but if you're old or if you're sick or if you're weak or if you're mentally ill, we're going to bring in doctors and have this official policy that allows you to be put down like somebody's old cat. And I just find it so incredibly hypocritical and bizarre that that's happening. And I predict that if we embrace assisted suicide, euthanasia, whatever you want to call it, if we as a culture in the West start to embrace that, we're going to get to a point where nobody's allowed to live past about 65 years old. We'll just be planning our deaths. And I really think that that's where this is headed. And I find it really alarming. Because it's really powerful to be told that you're going to be a burden. Nobody wants to be a burden. It's an extremely painful experience to be made to feel like you are imposing on other people. And, well, really, at what point is your life worth something? We're all terminal. We're all terminally ill, I guess, or at least our experience of life is one with an end. So it's going to end. Life has a lot of suffering in it. Lots of people experience pain every single day. Who's to say when does that tip? Is it when you stop having children? Is it when you stop having young children that you're actively raising? Is it when you stop being a strong and robust worker in the economy? I mean, at what point is it that we are, because we're always our very existence creates limits on other people's existence. So we're always burdening each other in lots of ways. At what point do we determine that our burden is greater than our contribution? And I think that, as we get older and we're less strong, we have more chronic illness, we're more expensive. I think that there's going to come a point when science and medicine is going to just determine that people shouldn't be allowed to live past some age.
Well, even if that isn't the case, if it is embraced, then I don't put it beyond certain factions of the government to introduce that as a form of propaganda to prime the pump, so to speak, for people signing up for medical finishing, unaliving. And if you look at the people who are doing this, these like late-term abortionists, Like, who are those people? That's what I wanted to show.
That's what you were looking for.
you
Oh,
wanna
was
see
it
this
that
thing?
woman?
Shh, don't spoil it.
Oh, gosh, this is awful.
Some downloads. And then we'll read some chats. Hopefully it'll let me. I just gotta make sure that it's... Yeah.
Oh, yuck.
Hello.
Thank you for
Nice to
seeing me.
meet you.
You too. Should we do hands and whatever? Are we very formal? Or do we not? I don't know.
We don't need to be formal, but we also don't need to touch hands.
Fine, good. So you do this work actually here sometimes?
Most people want to die in their own homes.
Yeah.
And so I would be in their home. And of course, many people are in hospital, in hospice, in care homes. And then there are people who don't feel comfortable dying at home. For example, they don't want their spouse to have to deal with their memory of them dying in their home. So then they come here, and this is a recliner. And so people recline here, and they can snuggle up with their loved ones if they want. And so it's good place for some people.
Mm-hmm. According to law, each MAID applicant must make a written request signed by an independent witness and have 2 independent medical assessments.
So this is the one that has to be signed in front of an independent witness.
And who would that be if I...
It has to be somebody who is not in the will and not a direct caregiver like me.
Could you a receptionist or...
Yes,
anything like
because
that?
they're not
Okay.
directly involved in
Yeah.
care.
How many MAID deaths have you been involved with?
Over 400.
That sounds like a lot. Is that what you do now? Like, is that the main
No,
thing?
I still run a contraception and abortion clinic in addition to my maid work.
Would you ever say no?
Of course, I
Have you
have.
refused?
Oh, yes. I mean, we have a law, and I obey this law. And so there are people who are not eligible under the law. Now, there are the situations where I might find somebody not eligible or eligible when another person won't because of the way our law is written.
In your experience, what do you think is the number one reason that people want MAID?
The number one reason is autonomy, control.
And what?
And everybody's different in what they think of as autonomy and control.
Yeah. So that would be about not wanting to lose that in their lives.
Yes, control. They desperately want control. Like they want to say, it's now. And even we say, okay, well, I can get back here at 7 o'clock. Is that okay? And they'll say yes, and they'll be so grateful that they can skip the last 2 days of their life. And I look at it and think, what you really needed was some more drugs, but you want my drugs, I'll give them to you.
Apart from the fact I don't have the desire, I think probably I would be eligible under the Canadian law.
Well, you'd have to be suffering unbearably, and you'd have to convince me that you were suffering unbearably.
And from what you've said, don't worry, I know you're not going to do anything here now. And I'm not
I'm not scared of
Yeah, I'm not scared. But I guess what I'm saying is there could be somebody next to me with exactly the same condition.
Yes.
Who doesn't want to go on anymore.
I've certainly met people who are no more disabled than I am, saying that life is not acceptable in this state. And I would say, you and I are different, but not different in the sense of wanting to have some control. Mm-hmm. So, Liz, right now you love life and you want to live, but there's lots of nasty illnesses you might get.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And if you got terminal cancer and you were having to deal with chemotherapy and radiation, wouldn't you be thrilled that if you had the choice to say, I'll go this far and no further?
For me, I'm concerned that giving the option and the right to a group of people puts another group of people at risk. But I don't feel that You see that as a worry.
What you're saying is to protect what you consider vulnerable people. You are condemning others to unbearable suffering. Unbearable suffering. And I am so glad that I'm a Canadian and that we have this law so that people can choose that or not choose that. But to say that somebody has to suffer like that is simply cruel.
Do you love your job?
I love my job. You know, I've always loved being a doctor, but, and I delivered over 1,000 babies and I took care of, families. But this is the very best work I've ever done in the last 7 years. And people ask me why. And I think, well, doctors like grateful patients. And nobody is more grateful than my patients now and their families.
Before, but I
What do you think about that?
think it's that woman, her the laughter when she says you have to convince me that you're suffering, and then she's like,
But
yeah,
you could have a terrible, terrible disease.
yeah, and you're fine now, but in a few years you could have. And she laughed so hard at that.
Yeah.
It's just.
But I mean,
She's a
from her
scary
point,
person.
from her point of view. Okay, so this is interesting because my moral intuition, which I can't, it's just an intuition, says you respect life.
Yeah.
Once you start messing around with disrespecting life and not putting life above human life above everything else, the entire framework of language and meaning completely is disrupted. And so part of respecting life is respecting, but there's a calculus about suffering that I can kind of see from her point of view. She wants to diminish suffering in the world because suffering is something bad, and it's better to die than to suffer in life. And doesn't that make kind of sense?
No.
And if she's doing it
doesn't.
cleanly and assumably, like, she blesses you out and then you're just gone, you just pass out.
It doesn't make any sense because suffering is innate to the human condition, and there are times when our psychological suffering is so intense that it eclipses anything we can feel physically. I mean, I felt intense physical pain. I told you about the time I had an ovarian torsion. My ovary flipped, and I was in so much pain that they had me on morphine and fentanyl and still couldn't control the pain. And I was going to be killed by the medicine before the pain would subside. It was so intense. But I've also felt intense psychological suffering. And I would say that if I had to choose, I would take the physical pain over the psychological pain. I would take the physical pain over the pain of losing of betrayal, of relationship devastation, of domestic abuse, of watching my family fall apart. I would even take the physical pain over the death of my mother, going through the pain of losing my mom. I'd give up another ovary and go through that whole thing again in order to not have another period in my life where it hurt so much. And so if you start to talk about alleviating suffering, you get what's happening in Canada right now, where some months back or in the past year, they successfully lobbied to have people with mental health conditions only eligible for medical assistance in dying. And so no longer does the individual have to have some kind of terminal diagnosis for
They open it
physical.
up to teenagers too. I think it's like some sort of weird, the weird like knowledgeable youngsters or something like that.
Well, it's the mature minor
Yeah,
thing,
mature minors. Yeah.
But this is going to be, if you start to say that our job is to alleviate suffering and that we prioritize reduction or elimination of suffering over life, over the preservation of life, then you're going to be killing people for
Well,
all kinds of stuff.
doesn't that admit that the meaning of life is in relationship to suffering?
I don't know if it's the meaning, but I think that it's inevitable and hopelessly intertwined with life.
The value of life is paired with either avoiding suffering or reaching for pleasure. I mean, this is very kind of a decadent view of what life
I'm not sure if
means.
you mean in the ethos of the people who would,
Yeah, like what are the basic
who would-
assumptions?
okay,
of
okay,
it?
I see.
And it comes from a society. It comes from a very particular historical and contextual, society and culture
Mm-hmm.
that has made all these assumptions, and these assumptions are what are driving it to, take up
well,
medicalized death
it-
as an empathetic. Didn't she say something that was really weird? The whole thing's really creepy. She's like, I could take away 2 days of this, like two more days.
they're so grateful to not have to live the last 2 days of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that
There's no spiritual component. It's
we've
just
all
like you're
heard
just
stories of
feeling
someone
things.
who lingered on for a long time at death's door, and the toll that took on their family, and the guilt that people feel when they're kind of like, my father or my husband or whoever it is, he's been so sick, and we thought he was going to go months ago, but he's still here, and we're still caring for him, and there's this guilt when the person finally does pass, and there's relief in that passing.
Yeah.
And those are situations that I think are really difficult. I think that would be really difficult.
Did you ever have to put down an animal?
Yeah, I have. Let's think. There was a cat. He had drank antifreeze, and he was suffering really bad. He was dying. He was like falling apart. And so we had him put down. But I went with a friend who had an old cat put down a couple of years ago. She was going to put her to sleep. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, she just said, it's time.
Yeah.
It's time. She has some urinary incontinence, and she doesn't seem happy anymore. And I felt so bad about that. I felt like that was not right. I felt for my friend. It was a really hard day for her, a really hard choice. She loved her cat. She really mourned, but I also felt like it wasn't right to play God that way and to decide when something is going to die.
Yeah, death is so final. And life is so filled with possibility. I think that if you loosen up I think that the issue of abortion has suffered most by becoming a political debate and by causing people to make it a core issue of theirs or a core part of their values and turn it into something where you're more concerned about keeping your abortion rights so-called or your daughter's abortion rights so-called than the economy, than doing well. Like, this is the most important thing, and it all comes down to bodily autonomy. And yet it's so sacrilegious to life to treat it like that. And I understand that it doesn't exist
I would
outside.
back up from that.
It doesn't exist outside of a network of values around choice, around autonomy, around consent,
Right.
right?
Around life.
And around, what do you mean?
Well, I would say that if you can't have the kind of sexual morality that's consent-based, the way that this culture has right now, and limit things like abortion. They are married to one another. Abortion is because prostitution is, because porn is. If you have, and porn is prostitution, it's just this virtual, somebody else is the one doing the paying and having the physical encounter, whether it be solo or multiple people, you are the recipient. And people who are like, there was that OnlyFans girl who claimed to have made like $40 million in a year or something. And people are saying, why would you pay for porn? It's free. Well, nothing's free. Somebody's paying for that. Why are they paying for it? If it's just like, it's like Facebook. If you're not paying to use that service, then you're the thing that's being sold. Your data is what they're taking. You're not the customer. Somebody else is the customer. So pornography is not free. It might be that you, as the participant in that cycle, are not paying in with your cash. But in a society that can mechanize and
Reproduce.
and make into a commodity something like sexuality, like sexual experience that way. There's people will say, oh, prostitution is the oldest profession. Well, maybe so. And maybe there would always be some prostitution, just like there will always be some suicide. But if we take that on as a central right or expectation of our culture, it's like, this is what our culture is about the right to pay for sex, or to demand that a doctor kill grandpa or kill me when I'm ready to go. You are putting a price on life, and abortion is just one of those many little tick boxes that fall in there. I mean, if you're going to say to women that it is okay to buy and sell your likeness, we don't have to, you're not special. There's nothing special about you being the one who is seductive, the one who is sought, the one who is sexually interesting and attractive. That's not special. That's just commodity. That's just a thing for sale. Then the products of sexuality also are not special. And that's children and babies. That's the conception of life. So if we have a culture that embraces consent-based sexuality, then we have abortion. We have and we have euthanasia. We have all of these things. They follow one from the other. And we have transition. We have on-demand medical
Sterilization.
Yeah, sterilization and alteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what does it matter? And that is
exactly.
where it gets crazy, because even if you choose that, who are you to choose for somebody else what they do? Who are you? Who's any one unit in this society to tell the rest of society what they can and cannot access?
It all unravels. As soon as you say that it doesn't matter, nothing matters. Everything has to matter or nothing matters.
What?
Life. Everything has to matter or nothing matters. Because at what point, if sex doesn't matter, then conception doesn't matter. And if conception doesn't matter, then babies don't matter. And if babies don't matter, then parents don't matter and kids don't matter. And if parents and kids don't matter, well, certainly grandparents and old people don't matter. And so all of it falls apart.
But who is any given member of our society to tell any other given member of society that life matters?
I think we have to back away from this mechanistic medical model that we've been driving towards, this technocratic, highly mechanized, it's like we're all, it's the identity politics, but it's being applied to human population, the centralization. And we are all telling us that nobody matters. So you're saying, who is anybody to tell someone else that they matter?
Yes.
I think we have to tap into that for ourselves. It's spiritual. It's not something that's on the human plane.
But our law is not based on spirituality. It's based on contract.
Well, and our law has to be based on contract and consent.
Yeah.
But we're replacing spiritual aspects of humanity with legal. And when you do that, you lose the human.
Yeah, but how do you
part.
recover the legal system from going in the direction of allowing people to do whatever they want to do? Like, how do you stop that inevitable?
You just can't. You can't patch spiritual holes with legal code.
I know. Well, yeah, I know. I agree. But how do you avert a legal system from going down that road, from going down that direction?
Well, you just have to say that some things are sacred. You just have to make a declaration. There has to be some. I could see like sort of a Human Dignity Act that declares that life is sacred and not available for commodification. We can't sell babies. We can't sell sex. And doctors are not permitted to end lives. You cannot end lives Just go back to the old Hippocratic Oath for one thing. The old Hippocratic Oath had in it a pledge to not perform abortions or to kill patients. It was like, I will not give any man poison, even if he entreats me, and I will give no woman a pessary in order to induce abortion. So that was our Hippocratic Oath.
Well, like, was that the original one, like OG Hippocrates, whatever his name was, or was that like
That was
like
original.
kind of a more modern version of that?
I can find out.
What about exhuming corpses to study their innards? That wasn't allowed for a long time.
I think that's horrible.
What do you think about donating your organs
I'm not an organ donor.
to science?
I'm not an organ donor. There's too many stories of people being determined to be, not savable.
But somebody
and
else
I think
is,
that
if
there
they can
might
get there.
be.
Yeah.
I think that there might be more effort made. I've lost all respect for the medical profession, though. So maybe I'm.
Hey, it's Johnny Boy. Here, let me go to our super chats because we have 4 of them. Thank you so much. Point Curation. Pair character turning around, waving his hand, saying, "Hey, you," while lowering his glasses. Jenny getting inky with it. The song reminded me of Ally McBeal. This is the song from the very beginning of the episode for some reason. I think it was the awkwardness being similar to a character on the show whose nickname was Biscuit. Jenny's getting inky with it again. Sorry. Canada does seem to have some sort of guidelines regarding euthanasia. They wouldn't let Lois partake of the program, just referred her to follow-ups on her SRS. Have you considered following up with her? Oh yeah, Lois, who is a male to female transitioner,
Okay.
who I spoke with along with Eva Krylova, who just had a baby, speaking of. And Lois was kind of making herself a poster child to test the system. I don't think it was fully I do not think it was fully like she actually wanted to die. She wanted to push she politicized her unfortunate surgery. It's causing her immense chronic pain because they took out a core part of her groin, and I'm using she and people. I'm out of the gender club, so nobody's going to yell at me for using that. She did that, and then she wants to apply because they can never fix her to get mated, and they denied her application. And I should have her back on. Jenny getting inky with it. Again, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Leslie's story reminds me of scene in Home Alone where Donald Trump comes along and saves the day.
She didn't say that.
Okay. The scene of Home Alone where they call cops to do home visit and kept getting transferred instead of cops listening and asking questions to actually address the situation, like they can't be bothered. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the other aspect of it, is that you're entrusting yourself into the hands of people who are going to just rely on procedure.
This is funny.
Rely on procedure to evaluate whether or not your life is worth continuing or stopping or not. Do you have to get vaccinated before they euthanize you?
I bet they do. That's really quite funny. I was going to read you the Hippocratic Oath. So this was. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's long. But
are you reading it in
this is the original
Greek?
one. No, it's translated, but this is the passage. It's not that long, but okay. Nor shall any man's entreaty prevail upon me to administer poison to anyone, neither will I counsel any man to do so. Moreover, I will give no sort of medicine to any pregnant woman with a view to destroy the child. Further, I will comport myself and use my knowledge in a godly manner. I will not cut for the stone, but will commit that affair entirely to the surgeons. Okay, there's more and more.
Yeah.
So this is, law is just code. It's just a code that people are held to. And so
so if a state wants to go in a certain direction, a state's going to go in a certain direction.
This isn't a state, this is a profession, but it's a professional code that these people who joined this profession at this time when this was in, they agreed to as if it were law. You'd be expelled from your profession and possibly subject to other consequences if you did something otherwise. So I don't see any reason why law can't be, it doesn't have to be all consent-based. That's a choice.
It's a consensual choice. Chaucerian Fraud, who's one of my spicier ancient visitation guys, he writes, if adults cannot tell each other that they cannot kill people, then how could the state intervene in abusive relationships?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I mean, we go back to, federalism, where you have certain states, like UK wants to do it this way, Canada wants to do it the other way, and Alabama wants to do it another way, and California wants to do it another way. And yet it seems like we're not so I don't know, this is probably the wrong way to say it or even think about it, but on a spiritual level, we're not necessarily hermetically sealed from each other. And the attitudes of one society go and splash onto the attitudes of another society. And what is the ultimate arbiter of the value of life? And and you're saying we have to consent into it, and it has to be revealed to us, and we have to work to it, and we just have to accept it as it is. But at the same time, our society is rapidly losing any sense of shame. All values are kind of eroding quicker and quicker and quicker. And maybe that is not necessarily accurate or the case, because maybe the instruments of decadence, being the mainstream media, being Hollywood, being the entertainment industry, are quickly losing the ability to create things that captivate on their own, because they have lost the core values that make a story matter, make something matter. And so they have to reevaluate their values in order to stir and be something that people will be attracted to, in order to re-emulate, to ingest into their lives and then re-emulate. And there might be the case or the possibility that more spiritually adept or morally sound cultural products will be more desired by more people, and then that will do a self-reinforcement loop, instead of going towards like Tarantino, like when he came on the scene in 1994 with Pulp Fiction, it was just totally way overboard and very vulgar, incredibly violent, and it popularized that. And then everybody had to go along with and he did it with artistry, so he can get away with a certain amount of shock value. But it seems like that shock value really quickly eradicates itself, and everybody gets numb. So there might be a case for more, religiously oriented cultural products that will then reverse the slide towards decadence. But it's totally obvious that we're in a very decadent time.
Yeah, very decadent.
What did you see?
John is arguing with me. He says law is not just a code. It's the federally binding law, beyond which is merely God's vague realm. Well, in Washington, we have the WAC, which is the Washington Administrative Code, and the RCW, which is the Revised Code of Washington. And laws are a system of codes. But we do have federal law as well, which would be a different set of codes. And I wonder,
people need to be manipulated towards meaning, I think.
I don't know. I think that there is something of a poison in progressivism.
Ooh.
Because to progress is to say that there is something out there not yet achieved, which is better than what we have right now, right? Yeah. And so this sort of upping the ante with thrill seeking, with sensation seeking, with wanting to see more and more entertaining content and wanting to achieve more novelty all the time. I think it creates a sort of discontent with what there is and with what could be had and wanted. What was that look?
I want to be unburdened by what can be had.
Oh, you want me to say the Kamala line? I'm not going to do it. I think that the mundane becomes unappealing. And it's sort of, we were talking about, how did we get on that discussion about people who don't have kids? What was that about? We had this discussion about adults not having kids.
Online or offline?
You and me offline, just
Well-
talking. What was it?
Well,
I
because
don't remember what
Megan
spurred
Murphy
that.
was, I just had
Oh,
Megan Murphy
yeah.
on, and she just
She's
talked
happy
about
not
her.
having
Yeah,
kids.
she's happy not having kids.
Yeah, and I was thinking how it's interesting. Like I've got most of my friends, my IRL friends, are
In two camps.
well, my in real life friends are almost all moms. I don't know very many people who have chosen not to have kids. Most of my friends have not only have kids, but my best friends here are all homeschool moms. So they have kids and they really dedicate themselves to them in a way that
Yeah.
takes on the shape of their life to a degree that if you send your kids off to school, it doesn't. So you're really intimately involved in child rearing for a long time. And then most of my professional friends, female friends, don't have kids. Like I was just realizing, like almost all the women that I do my Monday live streams with and my solid ground and have these conversations with, the majority of them are child-free ladies. And it's very interesting. Some of your observations about your conversation with Megan Murphy, and you've gotten to the age that you are without having kids. You have stepkids now, but have gone through young adulthood through middle adulthood and remained childless, child-free.
Yeah.
More and more people doing
Never
that
thought
now.
of myself as that. It just never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. And plus I was a lazy bum and broke all the time. So I didn't feel like I could do it. And then I was never in a relationship that bore that particular fruit. I was thinking about that and I commented on that because somebody who I won't mention responded to me communicating Megan's point of view with kind of like a strong moral counter to that.
With counter to her
And saying, well, how can I respect her if that's her life? Like she just wants fun. She just wants to live this fun life and not have any of those responsibilities and give up like the house and the stability for this thing called fun. Like that doesn't mean anything to me. I think we talked about this before, and I can see, and Megan was a little bit bristling against people who were saying that the ultimate goal in life is to have kids, is to have a house, so I just imagine, inside of the mom who has a baby young is this script, like this party girl script, like this alternate reality. If I was a party girl, kind of pining for like, if I didn't have kids, like I'm sure like there's some, that's an appealing thought, and not even when things are really, really difficult, but you could just kind of imagine like there's this other me that never had kids, and then in the woman who never had kids, and maybe, there's this thing that happens, like not the wall, which is when the beauty degrades, but like when you're 50 or something, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I can't have that anymore. What if I did have that kid? Like there's this script running in it. And it's not just the grass is always greener, but it's also that the choices that we make, we retroactively justify against other choices that we could have made. We could have lived this other life, but I didn't live that life. And so my life is superior in some way. It's the right life. And so because I made these decisions, I have to defend it against these other decisions. And that goes back to, if you decide to die, there's no more decision space after that moment. If you are decided to die, somebody else is taking away that decision from you.
Yeah.
And whether or not you have a decision to die is open because you did not decide to live. So who are you to decide to die? But you have to have something transcendent. There has to be a meaning that we put our cap in, whether it's fun, or whether it's pleasure, whether it's avoiding pain, or whether it's providing offspring and generating more offspring. Like all of those things have to serve something greater than us. And we use those things to touch something greater than us, I think. I think that there is a transcendent, even in the most mealy-mouthed materialistic point of view, there is some sort of grasping towards the transcendent, even if that can be regulated to, human beings are going to be an interplanetary species, or like I can imagine like the ultimate technocratic Elon Musk saying, we need chips in our brain, we need to be cyborgs because that empowers us to be more than we are, and we should have these self-driving cars so we can do other things with our time, right? And that's just kind of like the forward march of that. But I think that ultimately, all I know is that I stand in my heart of hearts, I stand in fear of God alone. Like there is something that I didn't choose to be here, and that I probably am beholden to at the end of my life. And so that's kind of my assumption about killing things. Even though I do eat meat, and when I've interacted with my dying pets or killing an animal for food, like there's something terrible about death. I can't imagine what it does to that woman that we showed the video of, to kill somebody and to be in a room with a dead body. Watch somebody go from a spirited living creature to just a lump of cells. And she would have already had to see them as a lump of cells before she participated in that death. And if there was any kind of like terror at seeing or witnessing that death, and if there isn't that terror, what is missing in her, or what is in me that is imaginary, possibly from an atheist point of view, that I'm imagining that this stuff has any meaning beyond it just kind of being an accidental beautiful thing, and it doesn't really mean anything spiritually or so on,
Gosh, that's funny, because I think death is easier to handle if you have a religious perspective, and if you have an atheistic perspective, it's
Chaucerian fraud's going
absolutely
to pipe
terrifying.
in here.
No,
I think that they come to a conclusion. I mean, from what I've heard, like,
that's
it's just
the
like,
final
there's nothing.
everything.
Yeah, there's
and
nothing.
so this is
all
so
it is.
final.
Yeah, this
you
is
just
what it is.
ended something. You ended the whole world.
This is what it is.
I when you were talking, I thought of this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from Milan Kundera. We can never know what to want, because living only one life, we can neither compare it with our previous lives nor perfect it in our lives to come. And I think, it's in your observation, like you had posted this woman who does all these,
Trolly
she does
things.
these pictures.
Imagine
She's like,
being 42 and not
Yeah.
having to hire a
don't have
babysitter
to
and
hire
get
a
free
babysitter.
drinks at the bar on Thanksgiving. The right hates this, she says.
That's
Her name's Angela. I can't remember her last name.
and it's funny. I think there have been times in my life where I've been able to be more free like that, and times when I've been really encumbered because of being a mom.
Yeah.
But the I don't know. You're right. Like there's confirmation bias, and there's sort of like this. You want to rationalize your own life choices and decisions, and yet I just think it would be empty if I hadn't had my kids. I think I'd feel. I don't know what I would feel.
Maybe it wouldn't be
I
empty or
don't-
vacuous. Maybe it would be spacious.
It would be spacious, but I can't imagine giving that up. My experiences having my children have been the most sublime, beautiful, like painful beauty. The sublime is like that thing that is so awesome that it hurts to love it. It's so beautiful, and being a mom is like that in so many ways. It's like you're the joy I get from experiencing life through their experiences, through teaching them and through watching them. I don't think I could get that from just being a dog mom or having some cats. But I do think that there is something peaceful and nice about being self-contained as well. And I can see that that's a choice that people could be happy with for themselves. If they don't have to be messily interrelated, because like those things like my horrible divorce, my horrible relationship with the father of my sons, that was abusive and full of betrayal and just so painful. I would never have had to have been tied to a person like that if I hadn't had a couple of kids with him. And so it has brought a lot of pain and an encumbrance. That's the way in which it's brought the most encumbrance to me. It's not through me not being able to go out and have a drink with my friends because I need a babysitter. It's through domestic violence and making difficult decisions about what do I sacrifice for my family? How much do I sacrifice? How much of myself do I sacrifice for this? You know? And divorce also is just super painful because it tears everybody in half.
Yeah.
But, so, you know, not having kids, I could have avoided those things. And I can see why people want to avoid those things, honestly. I can see that.
I've quite frequently have supplemented my solitude with interactions with children. Right now I'm working for the local school district, and I get to interact with, I mean, you don't really interact with high schoolers because they're in their own world, but like there's the high schoolers, then there's the middle schoolers, and there's the grade schoolers. And the high schoolers, I kind of just like, you know, we go along to get along, you know. I don't have a permanent position, so I'm just like kind of cycling through all these groups. The middle schoolers are so freaking annoying. They can't control themselves. They're so loud. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm living like that's who I'm living with right now, and now I'm just like I'm around 30 of them, you know, so it's just a little bit more. But there's something happened when I interact with the primary school kids, especially like the kindergartners, the 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Right, between 5 and 6. My heart just completely opens up, and my brain completely opens up, and I just become this other kind of person. Like my brain starts working in this really creative way where I'm connecting things in novel ways, and my heart's just really open to their hearts, and they're really open too. And I've always had that kind of interaction with kids throughout my adult life, and I can see that's something particular to me. You know, I remember every once in a while. We had a family friend, or my parents had church friends, and we go over to their house, and they said of the man, he doesn't like kids. And it always stuck with me. How do you not like kids? And you'd be around him, and he just not like kids.
Aww.
You know, and there's just people who just don't like kids.
That's funny.
You know, and then, you know, if you talk about liking kids in this day and age and stupid internet, like people will accuse you of other way, you know, but which is terrible that is even like
it's
inflated
really sad.
to be. It's sad as a phenomenon, but it's sad as a cultural constant that there's we've kind of infused that.
It makes people afraid of relationships with children.
And when those are some of when I look at it, we have a chunk too. Your daughter had a baby on Easter, and the baby's what, 6 months?
No, he's
old?
8 months.
He's 8 months old now, and every time like we connect with them, you know, we go over once a month, we try. Like we both just kind of like want to nibble on this little child, you know, and you're just like, it's just
edible, lovely.
And I think that there's something, you've said this too, that without connection to childhood, I think we do lose out on what it is to be a human being. You haven't said that, but I do think that if you want to know what...
Such a profound quote. Thank you for attributing it to me.
If you want to know what heaven is like, you can find that the children are very close to heaven. Like they're very close to the gate, to that other side of life. And in my own experience, it's just a thin line between this life and the spiritual world or the other life. And yet we're locked in here, and we're so far away from it, and so much of our senses and so much of our thinking and so much of our fault, we're locked away from that. But if you practice establishing that open connection with the child's open connection with the world, you get like a glimmer of what you were like and what God is like too. In this really free association. That said, they're also the most egotistical, narcissistical, short-sighted, foolish, you know, like there's all, you know, like, no, they are. No. Yeah, they are. No. Like they think about themselves as like the end all be all of existence.
I don't think that children are more egotistical than adolescents.
Well, I'm just saying that all of humanity is in there, right? You know, I was trying to leaven my like, they're the best thing ever. And it's like, no, they're very difficult. And insofar as you interact And so, well, one second.
Okay.
Insofar as you interact with their difficulty,
Yeah.
it's eliciting your own difficulties, your own patience, your own short-sightedness, your own will to power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So sorry, go on.
No. That's fine. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that we've had a culture that has really glorified youth for a long time, and it's
At the expense of childhood.
at the expense of childhood. Recently, it has become almost more. It seems like we even more than ever blatantly worship this young adult phase, like the late adolescence, the young adult. I mean, when did this start? It was for marketing, right? Because this was like the group that you were going to get them
Disposable income.
you were going to get customers for life. You were going to hook them on brand loyalty, and they were the ones spending the most money, and they were shapeable, still moldable. And it's the time in life when you have full access to your agency for the first time. You've come into your agency, you're an adult, you can do things, and you still have the most potential out front. You're at that inflection point, because when a baby has the most potential, and an older adult probably has the most agency, because disposable income and whatever. But here is this inflection point where you have the most combination of agency and potential that you will ever have again. And the people who go through life without ever having kids, I wonder if a part of that is because they fall in love with potential and they don't want to start limiting. They don't want to start.
Sometimes it just kind of
experiencing
happens, I mean, maybe, in my case, you could read that, and maybe you could read tons of other things,
Well, you're right. Thank you for pointing that out, because you're absolutely right. It's impossible to say one thing is the reason that all these people made this choice.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. But that caveat is welcome. But yeah,
Never say never ever after.
never ever after.
I was going to show one more meme, but yeah, I was going to show my game, but don't we usually? You talk about a recipe. You made some amazing brownies lately. You want to talk about those?
Oh yeah, that's my daughter's.
Can I do
recipe.
something without you talking about what I'm doing, and you just talk about your brownies for a moment?
If you want. Yeah, I've got these sourdough starter recipes that my daughters have been giving me, and made some really, really good brownies. They're very simple. Let's see if I can find you guys the recipe.
Is it like something online? Should we put it in the
My
recipe?
daughter wrote it on a little card.
Oh, okay.
read
So
it.
it is. Okay.
Sourdough discard brownies, 8 tablespoons butter. I've been using avocado oil instead, and I like the way it comes out better. 1 cup of chocolate chips. Melt those together. And then separately, 2 eggs and a half cup of sourdough discard. I also add about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Helps the flavor. And then mix in 3/4 cup of flour, 1 1/4 cup of sugar, half a cup of cocoa powder, half a teaspoon of salt. Mix that all together, and then add in that melted chocolate and oil, and mix together, and then bake for about 40 minutes if you're putting it in an 8x8 pan, and if you're putting it in an 8x13 pan, about like 25-ish minutes, 30 minutes maybe. Bake at 350. They're fantastic.
Our episodes are kind of like those Google articles. You look up for like instant pot potato mash or whatever, and you have to watch like
The
an
whole
hour.
story?
The whole
Oh,
thing
like-
is like
Days at my grandma's house were always like, some life story in order to get to
we
the
should.
recipe.
Yeah, we should
It's
start
like a recipe.
doing
today.
that little extra work and putting like a timestamp on when we finish up. Let's do these brownies, like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah. That's funny.
So, like we've talked about before, I've been getting into board games and stuff, and I've been listening to a lot of board game podcasts lately, and they made me think of a game, and I just started thinking about making a card game, and my brain started interacting with this pattern creation mechanism of game design in a way that I've never had my creative processes engaged with. I've done a lot of songwriting, and that's a particular pattern, and I've done a lot of writing, and that's another way of generating something creative. But this whole game design thing is just, it's basically, it's like mechanics and visuals, and I can see my brain going over and over again. So I was like, well, I want to make a game, and I want to have it kind of be like this. And then I thought of a name for it, and then I just like, well, I should make cards, and I wanted to put them on this thing called Tabletop Simulator, but I would have to learn to code, so I started doing that. But then I had to make all the graphics for the cards, and then I'm like, well, I'll just print up the cards. So I don't know if you'll be able to see them. So it's basically, there's no game yet. It's just this huge possibility space. And I want something, I'm chasing after a feeling of interaction and of pattern recognition, like one aspect of it. And I'll talk about the cards real quick. So every card has a letter, a number, a shape, and a color on it. And there's 4 letters, 4 numbers, 4 colors, and 4 shapes. And so that works out to 256 cards. And then there's, because the way that they print them, they're all on a sheet of 18. So I just made 270 cards. So there's 14 wilds. I don't even know if I'll even use the wilds, right? So what you do is you just, it's sets. You can put it closer to it.
Oh, wait, where
it's
is
up
it?
there. It's right there, baby.
Yeah,
So it's sets.
Sets.
So you can spell the word sets, or you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, or you can do all the different colors or all the different shapes. And I was thinking there's certain aspects of the games that we play where we're all kind of caught in the game, where we're all like really concentrating on the game and like having a tug of war. And I want to figure out a system or a game out of this pattern or this possibility space where there will be this kind of tug of war or this mutual, it could be slightly, I have no idea. So I just have to play with these games. So I just sit here, and I deal them out, and I do kind of like do rudimentary math, seeing how these patterns are going to shape up and stuff. But I also like, when I was working in preschool, we'd have, Legos, and you just pour all the Legos out on the floor, and you tell your brain, I need yellow, 2-space yellow. And you tell your brain that, and all of a sudden, like,
That's all you see.
That's all you see.
Yeah.
It's always amazing because, and I noticed that when I was like in that period of life where I was ultimately possible and out my own for the first time, I got into walking around barefoot in Chicago for the summer. And because it was Chicago and I was barefoot, I would always have to be watching out for glass and other deadly things, like viruses and needles and stuff like that. So what I started doing was I started seeing all this, just these little bits of things on the road, and I started collecting all these little weird things. And I would watch, like, I'd pick up this object, and I'm like, what is this? And my brain would say, that's a belt buckle, or like a piece of a belt buckle. And I'm like, how did you know that? Like, where's this knowledge coming from? Like, there's this gap between my conscious mind and then this kind of system where all my pattern recognition is. And I want the game to kind of like bring out that pattern recognition space and then have it interlock with other people. So I have no idea what is possible. For
Gross, Ben, says
What?
Helena. She's thinking about your feet.
What? Feet are great.
No,
Feet,
when you were walking around barefoot in
free
Chicago.
the foot, man. Women can go around without the shirts on. I want to go around without my shoes on, man.
That's your answer?
If it's offensive to you, that's up to you. That's not up to me.
Free the toe.
Anyways, do you have anything coming up this week on your show?
I don't know. I don't know if we have anything we're set to talk about on Monday. Maybe we'll talk about euthanasia because it's really on my mind quite a bit. See if the other ladies want to talk about it.
Yeah. I have an interview with Catherine D., who's Default Friend on Twitter. We have a really good conversation that's going to be dropping in a couple days here, and I need to figure out who else I'm going to be interviewing this month because I have a completely open roster. I'm probably going to get Kryptos back on. My interview with What If Alt Hist or Rudyard Lynch did very well. It's very nice. Every once in a while you have a video that does really well. I'm like, okay, well, that pays for all the 900, 2,000 watched videos,
like these ones.
Like,
we get about 3,000.
We get. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes.
Yeah, I spoke with Laura Becker
She's a detransitioner.
couple weeks ago.
I've had her on my
Yeah,
show.
so I'll
She's very
probably
active.
put that one up. She's really open and she's a really sweet person who's
Candid.
been through a lot and is willing to really dig deep and talk. I'll probably put that up this week.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you too.
I feel really bad that I was short with you. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to teach you.
You're going to have to go back and rewatch it and cringe at yourself. That's what you're going to have to do.
No, I need to teach you proper etiquette. When we're on the stream, don't worry about what I'm doing because they can't see that. Interact with the audience. Forget what's this. And just like, it's all about the audience. Don't talk about what my hands are doing. Unless it's very directly related to the thing. Yeah. Well, but you just have to ignore that.
So one more thing I will ask you about.
Me?
Yeah.
Or the chat?
No. It was the other day when we did our last chat. You called me Leslie Elliott, and somebody in the comments was like upset about it. Do you remember that? Like there was a comment about it that they didn't like that you didn't call me
Leslie Elliott Boyce.
Yeah, or just Boyce.
Leslie Boyce.
And then I saw this thing on Twitter the other day, and so this is just like a small segue before we close.
Okay. Yeah.
But
interesting.
I thought this was kind of a more fun one, a little bit more fun. It's a little bit lighter, but it was. I think it was Wilfred Riley. I really enjoy him on Twitter. He's spicy, and sometimes I agree with him really strongly, and sometimes I really disagree with him. But I like
he's got a much looser sexual morality than you do. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, he does, and I don't agree with some of his takes, but I like him, and I do agree with some of his takes. And so I think he was making a. I don't want to misstate his position. If he was just asking a poll, or if he was making a statement.
He likes to do that.
But he was. In favor of women taking their husband's last name? Strongly. Like if you won't do that, it's like red flag. Some sort of. I think that was the gist of it.
Yeah, he's a really odd mix of like conservative, libertarian, and traditionalist.
Maybe it wasn't his take. Maybe he was just. Maybe he posted it and asked what people think. So
he does that.
Yeah, I don't want to presume his opinion because I don't remember. But it was really interesting. Like the comments about it was like, if she won't take your last name, that is like you have to ask within a couple of dates, and if she won't, leave her. It's just like a terrible thing. Get that out first and early, and that's a red flag if she won't take your name.
Body count.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, I was just kind of wondering what your thoughts were.
On taking the name?
Yeah. Yep.
I do think it's still me getting used to Leslie Elliott. Both. Love you, Johnny.
Thank you, John.
Les and Bez.
Thank you.
It's Les and Ben, or Les and Ben.
I don't prefer the Z in Les.
No homo. You're the furthest thing from a lesbian that I've ever groped. I'm still getting used to you having my last name. It's really interesting. But that's up to you. That's your choice,
Yeah.
Like you've already hitched yourself to me, and you've decided to do that, and so like there's some legal process, But Leslie Elliott Boyce, you also have made your mark as Leslie Elliott, but I guess you could just change that. I don't know.
I like Elliott. It's as much of my name as
I don't
Leslie
like the
is.
hyphen thing.
I don't like.
I don't
the
like
hyphen
it
thing.
when, and then you're like, wait,
I'm not
who's going to be
hyphenating
who
anything.
and who's going to be who? Like that's weird. I don't like the. I can't remember what it was, but there was this whole push from second wave feminists to invent this term called Ms., MS, and it was completely astroturfed. Like it was not organic. Most women just were comfortable with Miss and Mrs. Yeah. And I understand that the liberal progressive mindset says no, like I am not in relationship to marriage. My life, my professional life is not to be demarcated in relationship to a man. Mm-hmm. Like I am my own creature, and I am above and beyond that, and I'm like, okay, well I understand that it's a little Miss, Mrs., Ms. I get that, but then when they wanted to go out and stop using he, like in a sentence, like when one does something, he usually does this, like he as the.
They don't want man to be human neutral.
Yeah, no. So then you're like, well, what? You swap out she and you sound like a bitch, or you do she, he or they, or he or she, and it's just like, I can't even pronounce the word lugubrious. It's just like too much. Lugubrious, dude. And now that paved the way for all this pronoun bullshit, It all paved the way for it, And you're like, can we just stop at this? But no, it's self-determination all the way down. Until you're on your deathbed and you say, I don't want to live 2 more days. Stuff your rockets powder up my nose and send me out for a great goodbye. I was thinking, and I already talked about this, but I wanted to start a startup company called mombomb.com. And when your mom wants to die or your dad wants to die, like there's these big catapults. And they get all snuggly up in this cocoon, a heated blanket, and then just go, and you just fly through the air faster and faster until finally you pass out.
This is terrible.
Yeah, well, there's actually, and it turns out that some guy did, some French man, if you can believe it, came up with this euthanasia roller coaster. It's kind of like this death coaster thing where it makes you go faster and faster.
Are you joking?
No, you
That's
can. Well, it's just a model. He didn't actually build it, but like it's a model, and like somebody went through and explained the math of it and how you would probably not die, but like there's a chance that you would if you're frail enough because of the amount of like brainstem damage.
Using somebody's last name.
I'm saying if we're gonna go euthanasia.
Well, we're talking about taking last names. How did we get back to euthanasia?
Well, because it's the feminism.
What?
Yeah, feminism, self-determination. It's all of a piece. You're like, if you're jerking off, you're basically aborting your babies. I'm like, if you're not using your husband's last name, you're basically killing your grandma. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's all a piece. Either it all matters or it doesn't matter, Leslie Boyce.
You're going to have to take me through the logic of that, but we don't have to do that on camera.
No, I think it's clear. I constantly say this. I constantly say it's like, do you have the choice to not hitch yourself to your husband? Like, no, you should be completely self-determined in every aspect of your life. Nobody should ever put anything on you.
Wait,
right?
What?
Non-voluntarily, it's all consensual. You're down to your pronouns. I'm trying to have Riz. I'm trying to whip out the Riz now.
Oh, that's what's happening.
The problem is when I do get Rizzy, like my syllogisms come out to the forefront, and I stop making sense, and everybody assumes that I'm just drunk or high AF, and I'm not. It's like my actual Riz. Yeah. My actual Riz is just. It's preternatural. It's out of this world. That's why I get along with 3-year-olds so well because like I think like they think. It's like, oh yeah, banana and chocolate sea source, whatever. Anyway, so
okay, well I guess that marks the end of the conversation.
Yeah, that's this is Benjamin Boyce and my wife Leslie Elliott Boyce. No hyphen.
No hyphen.
Jennifer Leslie Elliott Boyce.
I suppose.
Yeah.
You must.
And we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and we should do something special for next time.
Like a Christmas.
Yeah.
A Christmas special.
thing. Well, a Christmas-y thing. We can get our sweaters out. We did not show up with sweaters.
I have a sweater. You have a sweater.
Great, wonderful. This is kind of like a weird thing. I don't like it. I don't wear it that much. Anyways, we'll check you guys later.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good night.